My name is Brandon Jerrod. I use they, them pronouns, and I am first and foremost a human. I am Black, fat, queer, all the above. And an artist, a creative, a dork. Yeah, here I am.
I'm Sissy Siero, and today on Superpowers at Work, we're talking about inclusive language and how much it matters for our sense of belonging. I want to give a shout out to my colleague Brandon for being so transparent and so brave to share their story with us. They really wanted to be of service here for other people too, but it takes a lot to share from the heart like this. What do you mean by dork? I never really understood that term. What does it mean to you?
First off, I'm a Gemini, so we do a lot of everything.
Nice.
So I'm a classically trained trombonist, so I played classical and jazz music, so I was literally a band dork with a bass trombone on my back. Wow. I also love video games. I dabbled for a while in Magic the Gathering. I love sci-fi and fantasy books and stories and movies. So, a little bit of everything. Like, I'm definitely...
I didn't know you were a musician. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I started too.
Really?
Yeah. I still am. I just don't have as much time to dedicate to it as I would like.
Instrumentalist or vocalist?
Singing, starting when I was about, I don't know, in my teens, I guess, taking lessons, classical lessons as well. And then I realized the opera world was not going to be ready for me, so I should not do that. So then I got a guitar, and it was, that time in the world where that was what was happening.
I'm envious. I definitely inherited the musical gene from my family, but I didn't inherit the vocal ability. So I was always jealous of people who could sing.
Yeah, but to be able to play, to be able to play, express yourself in any way. I think to express yourself anyway is such a gift, such a divine gift.
We're very lucky.
Right?
There's a magic in storytelling in all forms. And I personally, as a person who's a creative, who loves other creatives, I feel that we have the most impact in changing the world.
Brandon was always the highlight of our marketing meetings at Siero Media, always bringing joy and heart, even over Zoom. What pains me is to hear how that respect is not always extended back to them.
It's really sad, but I walk through the world knowing that there's very few places where I'm going to experience belonging. A lot of people tote and speak toward culture and belonging, but they actually don't bring it to practice. And of course, me being so hyper marginalized, I'm not only queer and feminine and a non-binary person, but you add the extra layer of me also being Black and being dark skinned. It creates a very unique experience where, I'm hyper visible and also invisible at the same time.
Oh, can you talk more about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's so, it went right in my heart when you said that.
It's really sad, especially whenever you have instances where, even if, for example, if the team is all Black, just within the Black experience, I often am an outlier because of my queerness. Yeah, it's intersectionality. I am oftentimes a token for so many things at the same time, to where my existence is a affront to the status quo. But at the same time, because people don't want to acknowledge, or oftentimes don't want to acknowledge, true belonging and inclusion, like it makes my experience in particular like very, very awful.
Because their uncomfortability,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it's so much about that. I specifically wanted to ask you about your pronouns and those pronouns being misused or not not being acknowledged or
Mm-hmm.
respected.
I always, whenever I introduce myself, I acknowledge, my pronouns, whether other people do or
Right.
not, just because I know for me, this is me. And if we're going to be working 8 to 10 hours a day, like, I don't want you to misgender me all day. That's really going to get on my
Right.
nerve. This particular company that I'm working for, I knew off of the reputation of the company that it was one that is a little bit more conservative. They may donate to pride parades here and there, but in terms of the internal systems, like it's not a place that breeds culture. So, I've already been disregarded and misgendered constantly. The training is being conducted on Zoom, so you're able to change your name, and I even put they them after my name as that extra, visual cue of whenever you're referring to me, try to use these pronouns, and I get sirred and he'd like all day. So that's been festive.
I am so sorry that you're experiencing that. I truly am. And it's so interesting to me that people can still be unaware or, as I like to say, purposefully oblique to these very, very important distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that people are doing this like a lot, your team. Do you correct them? Do you talk to a manager? How do you navigate that in a job?
Well, at this point, it's very much quiet correction whenever it happens. Someone will say, Brandon, he, or like his, sir. And I would just, politely remind, it's like, hey, my pronouns are they, them. Because there's this misconception of all non-binary people reacting violently towards being misgendered, which also, if they do, is probably because, they've been microaggressed all day or for a while. So it's not like this is happening in the vacuum. But yeah, like it's right now I'm trying to wear the smile and do it politely, quietly. But to be honest, just looking at the organization and based off of even past experience, like I doubt that there's going to be many that or anyone that could advocate for me higher up. So it's just going to be an experience that I have to shoulder.
Well, I hate to hear that. What would you say, so for people who are scared to say the wrong thing, what would be the best etiquette coming from your perspective about asking people about preferred pronouns? Because some of this is just very basic and we have to let folks know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to re-examine how we approach, how we introduce ourselves and introduce other people, whether it's a verbal one-on-one meeting, a meeting like amongst people. Even whenever I was a recruiter and we did hiring events, I advocated for pronouns on the actual name badges so people would feel comfortable whether they had pronouns that were not aligned to what they were assigned to at birth or not. And, for the people who are scared, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, hi, hi, Sissy, nice to meet you. What are your preferred pronouns?
As easy as that.
Or if you get it wrong, oh, I'm so sorry. And correct yourself. Like even I, as a non-binary person, like I misgender people all the time. Like it happens.
When did you first realize that you wanted to identify as they, them?
It was The pandemic. That's whenever I had the time to sit with it and to really acknowledge my experience and a lot of the pain points that I felt in my identity as a man, right? Trying to create this new example of something that I had no connection to. It was really hilarious because during the lockdown, I went and I logged into my Tumblr. And a few years ago, I learned different forms of gender queerness and non-binary was starting to be used as a term. And I was starting to actually like identify with it, but I didn't make a change at that point because I had to get up, go to work, like all those things. I didn't have time to really sit with what I had just discovered. But yeah, it made sense. Like my whole experience, my childhood, my teenage years up until now, like it's not binary. I'm not binary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was the pandemic actually having time to sit with myself to where I was like, yeah, this doesn't fit. So in corporate spaces and in spaces where there's not really a developed relationship, I strictly use they, them pronouns. But specifically in queer spaces, I'm definitely fine with gender pronouns, but leaning more towards feminine. So like if you were to call me sis or girl, like my friend is like, oh, she mad today. Like that's like,
right.
You know, like that. But that's something that is, you know, that people who are
that's your friends.
Yeah, like in spaces with me who have,
where there's trust and love.
Yes, and who are also queer. So like they have that shared experience. Yes. But like if it's like
saying it with love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just have like I feel sad that I'm glad you have a job that you've been wanting, but I'm just sad that it's in a company where you don't feel like someone would even advocate for you. I just can't stand hearing that.
Yeah. And like, it's not even like a job that like I want. It's a job that like I need to be able to pay my bills. Like it's.
Yeah. I relate to that. So you talked just briefly about right now, I guess, feeling othered in the new team that you're part of.
So as soon as I came to terms with it, I started identifying at work as non-binary. I became like a tech support agent at a company called Jamf. That was glorious. Like it was a very respectful, very beautiful team. There were other people who were non-binary. It's a very large company. There was a queer presence there. And then also the people who typically work at Jamf are often former Apple employees. So there's an understanding around culture, at least. So like I felt very comfortable there.
Was there a specific person there or just was a general sense of it? Like,
it's a general
we're open
sense,
to you.
Yeah. Like Jamf is like
that's nice to hear.
Amazing company.
So there are so many great companies out there, like Jamf and Apple, doing the hard work to help people feel comfortable. Brandon also had a not-so-positive story from another company. And while we don't want to point fingers or name names, it's a great example of how policies can become outdated, even if they start off with respectful intentions.
Because, you know, I'm a trans person, I had a viewpoint that a lot of people did not acknowledge. One of them being the drug testing policy. Their policy is if you fail the drug test the first time, you have to retake it, but it has to be supervised. And the person supervising you their gender marker has to match the person that they're supervising. And, you know, me being a trans person in community with other trans people, especially binary trans people, I was like, that's a problem. Like, what about people who have not changed their gender markers yet? Like, I know a lot of people who, like, you will look at them and you will think that they're cis And like whether they have passing privilege or not, like that doesn't matter. This is a person who identifies as a man or a woman, and because of systematic oppression, they can immediately change their gender markers. So why are we like faulting them? Why are we making an experience where not only they are uncomfortable, but also the person who is observing them is uncomfortable?
Right,
like,
right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah, like it's a weird, antiquated policy.
There's no reason for that.
Yeah, so I was like the only person to, raise my hand and say, this isn't right. And like there was I forget her name, but she was like, thank you. Like I've been saying that for years, but the directors were not listening to her.
And did they listen to you then? How was that received and what happened?
To my knowledge, there's not been a change of the policy. However, like there are, things that I voiced where I did see change, but I'm not sure if they made an amendment to that policy at this point.
I can't tell you how I appreciate you talking about all this, because these are the specific problems that people are dealing with all the time. And again, as you said at the beginning, and as we all know, there's a lot of pretending and posturing to make that change, make that cultural change. Let's all wave those pride flags. Okay, put them away.
Exactly.
We're in July.
Right.
What do you feel like from these experiences? And do you have strategies, around creating an inclusive work environment, that you've experienced?
It really depends on my role. Like whenever I have more of a senior position, so whenever I was working in HR or whenever I was a manager, I made it a point to demonstrate and lead with empathy and understanding and read up and just be versed on the experiences of many different people. Like there's so much I learned in being a leader. Like that's whenever I learned about like fibrosis and like it's like, oh my God, this is happening to your body. Yes, take an extra break. Like, like
yes, exactly.
So like it is so important to lead with empathy and understanding. So like whenever I actually have the power in my title, I know and see it as a responsibility to wield it to where I'm creating space for not just me to ascend and to have power or to get my bonus, but for the people that I'm leading to be happy, because when they're happier, they're going to perform better.
Huge thanks to Brandon for sharing their experiences with us. Respectful pronoun use and inclusive language are vital for workplace belonging. And these stories remind us why. Big shout out to our amazing crew, producer and sound designer, Ray Kantrowitz, our fantastic assistant producer and communications expert, Ilana Nevins, and our mixing and mastering wizard, Samantha Gatzik. And don't miss out. Give us a like and make sure to subscribe to Superpowers at Work on your preferred podcast platform. It's a small ask, teeny tiny. I'm Sissy Siero. Be well.